Hey everybody, it's me, Wayne, your metal professor, with another review of Voice of Baceprot's debut album, RETAS. Wait, didn't you just do this a few days ago? You might be asking. Yeah, I did. But after that first video went up and it got so much love from you all, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
But YouTube flagged it for copyright violations, so I had to cut out one segment and mute another, and the result is that video now is kind of jarring to watch. So I am going to cut down the musical samples just a bit and try to avoid that copyright stuff, and also fill in some extra information and correct some things that I got wrong the first time around. Now this is going to include most of the material from the previous video, but it will also include some new stuff like this new introduction. For example, in case you didn't watch the first video, let us jump right into the songs, and then we will fill in background and other stuff in the middle. If metal is at its best when it's saying something, even if that's something you don't necessarily want to hear, but you need to hear, this album does that. These young women, Voice of Baceprot, have something to say. They have a lot of somethings to say, and they are not shy about it. What's the Holy Nobel today? An unapologetically anti-war song. This tune cuts straight to the chase. Musically, we get mostly power metal, but with some rap-style delivery of some lyrics. There's a declamatory, even shouting tone in places, and also some very emotive singing. There's also an unmistakably Eastern flavor to some of the vocals and to some of the guitar lines. And all in all, I think this song, What's the Holy Nobel Today, is the perfect way to open the album. If you're already a VOB fan, you'll go, oh, I like that tune. And if you're not, I think this song will hook you in and keep you wanting to hear the rest of the record. Voice of Baceprot, or VOB, were formed in Indonesia. They are a trio of young Muslim women, and they apparently have had a hell of a time with pressures from sociocultural forces. And, that's not newsworthy. As I mentioned in the previous version of this video, in every culture there are segments that disapprove of music, disapprove of metal, disapprove of women, especially young women, having a say in society, having a say in politics, even having control over their own bodies. So that the three members of Voice of Baceprot, Marcia on lead vocals and guitar, Siti on drums, and Widi on bass guitar, that these three ladies have had to put up with a lot of hassle on their way to the world stage is not newsworthy, but it is unfortunate. PMS. This cut begins with a really catchy riff, and if you're not careful, you'll find yourself humming it for hours afterwards. I know from experience. The title does not mean what it usually means in Western parlance. Rather, and I'm going to have to look at my notes for this, PMS stands for, according to Google Translate, Perempuan Merdeka Sudhunwa, which means fully independent women. And I'm sure I butchered those words. But again, please forgive. The song itself directly addresses the toxic, hypocritical nature of socio-political gatekeepers, those folks who would make themselves look better, at least in part, by vilifying others. But VOB is buying none of that. They address those social forces directly. And they point out, sadly, that what those forces do works, and they also point out the effect of giving in to them. Those folks who bow to such socio-political pressures will find themselves shackled to rules, ideas, and concepts and roles that ultimately do nothing but stifle. There are several effective changes of tempo, a guitar solo, a bass solo, and then at the end of the song, it comes back into that catchy riff and gives us more lyrics, which is great, given how many songs from everybody these days have only two verses, sometimes only one verse. More lyrics, to me, are almost always better. The track then flows back into its floating affective chorus and ends on kind of a bum 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 sort of thing. As for the language of the song, I thought that it was English and Sundanese, but Several of y'all have corrected me. I now know there are more than 700 ethnic languages in Indonesia, and there is one state language, Bahasa Indonesia, and lots of people understand English. So it makes sense that VOB's lyrics would be in English and in Bahasa Indonesia, and I hope I pronounced those things correctly. Age-oriented. This is a good cut. It might be tied with the following two for the honor of being the heaviest on the album. It has a complex structure and 4 primary musical motifs: a crushing power chord bit, a catchy bridge-type section, a rap-ish sort of vocal in the verses, and both in the chorus and preceding each rap-ish type section, a very nicely sung, flowing vocal that has that kind of undulating Eastern quality to which I alluded earlier. I was kind of mistaken about the subject of this song. It is about age discrimination, and although discrimination against the elderly is an extremely widespread problem, in this song the band is talking about discrimination against youth, which is its own kind of problem, and in United States culture and American culture, discrimination against the elderly is a far worse problem than discrimination against youth. But there are other areas of the world in which discrimination against youth is a far bigger problem than discrimination against the elderly, and it is youth discrimination that the band is targeting here. The enemy of Earth is you. Maybe the other heaviest track on this album. This song is very pro-environment, especially it addresses those folks who would pay lip service to the planet and to the environment while nonetheless taking no action to back up those words. But the song is not only about environmental corruption, it also touches on hate speech and political corruption and a few other things. There's a really nice instrumental section starting at about 1:23, and it's almost funk. Swear to Cthulhu. That little section is just about funk, and it's great. There really seems to be a mixture of musical styles in VOB's music. It's like they've got a metal frame with other things grafted expertly onto it, including funk and rap and various types of metal, power metal, thrash metal, some classic heavy metal. It was pointed out to me, I think again by BW in the comments, that in an interview, I believe it was Marcia, who said that all 3 members of VOB have different favorite styles of music. One of them likes mostly heavy metal. The bass player, Weedy, is most fond of funk, which explains some of those awesome bass lines. And another is most fond of rap. So they agreed that they would combine the 3 things into something kind of new. Now, VOB is not the first band, not even the first metal band, to try combining various styles into their music, but I would argue VOB has done it better than most. They have created a unique sound, and unique means only one. I don't mean an unusual sound, I mean a unique sound. You will not find another band that sounds exactly like VOB, no matter how hard you look. I knew this but forgot to include it in the previous video. Kawani is Sundanese and it means courage, which is very appropriate for this band given what they've had to go through, and also for the courage of including an instrumental track on a mostly vocal album. On most vocal albums, an instrumental cut is death. An instrumental on a vocal album is the tune most likely to be skipped on subsequent listenings, but don't skip this one. It's not just good, it's interesting. Seriously, if you stretched Kawani out by another 5 minutes and threw in some shredding, you'd have an instrumental worthy of Iron Maiden. In fact, at around the 1 minute mark, there is a bass line. It's this one. You hear that? Surely that is an homage to Steve Harris's bass line during that languid, creepy section of Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. So When I heard this bit, I was like, hey, I know that bass line. That's cool. Now, if there's a weakness to this instrumental cut, it is kind of a weakness and kind of a strength. There's so much packed into it that as a listener, I kept wanting them to go back to some of the sections they had completed already and give us more of that. But, leave them wanting more is almost always good advice, and Kawani does just that. It's difficult to find a sensible translation of the album's title, RETAS, but you all have provided me with several possible meanings. Viewer BW asserts that RETAS is a type of igneous rock. That's a volcanic rock. Volcanic rock is formed under intense heat and pressure, and that makes it kind of an appropriate name, I think, because certainly the band has put up with a lot of sociocultural heat and pressure on their way up. Other folks have said that RETAS stands for hatching, as in, hatching from an egg, which sort of makes sense. If this is the band's debut full-length album, they are sort of spreading their wings, as it were. And in an article from The Guardian in July of 2023, the writer states that RETAS means breaking. And considering the breaking of stereotypes and the breaking of norms in metal and in culture all around the world, that would be an appropriate name too. So take your pick, I suppose. Not public property. This song very clearly is about the fact, and that's how I'm going to phrase it, not as a perspective or a position, but a fact that women's bodies are their own. For many, many people, women seem just to be objects for sex, politics, social things, and just plain old misogyny. But again, VOB is having none of that. The juxtaposition of that parenthetical not in the title with the chorus of the song, which is from the perspective of the victim, whose body is seen as public property, makes this song both a lament of persecution and a challenge to the persecutors. And did I mention the song is metal and it rocks? I didn't? Well, let me do that now. Like all the other cuts, this is metal and it's good. God, allow me please to play music. This tune came out in 2021, and it is about exactly what the title implies. It is about the desire to play music as a means of self-expression and the surety that no matter what segments of society might think, if there is a deity, and the ladies don't say if, that's just me, the deity almost certainly would not disapprove of music. The fact that a god would not disapprove of music and playing it, however, does not mean that that deity's earthly followers would not disapprove, because many do. But that earthly disapproval has no ethical or moral impact on the fundamental right to self-expression through music. I want to pause for just a moment too and note that all three of these ladies are more than competent musicians. I want to single out Weedy, however, because she is really, really good on bass guitar. As I said last time, I won't compare her to the Grand Master of Intergalactic Funk, Bootsy Collins, or Steve Harris, or something like that, but she is uncommonly good. School Revolution. As mentioned earlier, this was voice of Baceprot's initial release back in 2018. And while it's not as heavy as some of the other tracks on the album, it's no lightweight. And it must have been a cultural punch to the head, given its attitude, its content, and of course that it's three young women bringing it into the world. A live version of God, Allow Me Please to Play Music. I was a little on the fence about really discussing this song because, so often we get live versions, many live versions of studio cuts, so many live versions we cease paying attention. How many live albums has Iron Maiden put out? I'm not casting stones, by the way. Maiden is my all-time favorite band. But honestly, I don't need to hear another live version of the song Iron Maiden ever again. But this live version of God Allow Me Please to Play Music is different enough and it's interesting enough that I think we can include it as a composition in its own right. So, my verdict. Voice of Baceprot are the baddest of the bad. And I don't mean bad as in, ooh, bad. I mean bad as in bad mother. These young women are a powerful force for good on the planet. And this, RETAS, is an impressive full-length studio debut. If you're unfamiliar with VOB, do your ears and your mind and your soul a favor and get familiar with them. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching this corrected review of RETAS. If you liked it, please feel free to subscribe. Give it a thumbs up. Oh, and by the way, if you watched this review and already watched the first one, hey, double thank you for putting in those extra 18 minutes. I really appreciate that. By the by, if you'd like to buy an In Metal We Trust shirt or a Metal is for Girls shirt, there's a link in the video description. Yeah, I'm shamelessly hawking my own wares, but what are you going to do? All right, hey, watch some more videos. Come on, your mom won't know. You guys are awesome. I'll talk to you soon.